Coming up on this week's show, unlimited Windows XP codes forever.
Play Tetris on a chicken McNugget.
And we catch up with DJ Slopes from Slopes Game Room.
And the Retro Hour podcast is brought to you every Friday with our great mates at Bitmap Books. Now, something to look out for. Coming very soon, PC Engine, the box art collection, the collector's edition. Now, this comes in a gorgeous, sturdy slipcase and features an exclusive cover illustration by the legendary Will Overton of Rare and Superplay magazine fame, and it also features Will's artwork in a protective dust jacket as well. Now, the thing about this is it's limited to only 2,000 copies, and they will never print it again. So you get full details of that and the rest of their retro gaming collection at bitmapbooks.com. And with our friends at PCBWay. Now, if you're working on a retro project over summer, they offer a fully featured custom PCB prototyping service with low cost, fast turnaround quality boards, and they offer services like 3D printing and injection molding, and they're massive supporters of the retro community. So get an instant quote for your project right now at PCBWay.com. Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 380, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
Me, Ravi Abbott.
And me, Joe Fox.
And very nice to have you joining us for our first podcast of June. Of course, the show that every single Friday will take you behind the scenes on the world of retro gaming, bringing on guests on the podcast every week, and the variety of people we bring you on this show. Massive. Anything from developers, company CEOs, artists, musicians, content creators. Every single episode, we bring you a guest in the second half. And of course, the first half of the podcast, that's when we basically save you a bit of time. You don't have to follow all the blogs and Google around and check Twitter every day. We give you a little summary of all the big headlines and the stuff that's been happening in the world of retro from over the last 7 days with our little expert panel of geeks, I think it's fair to describe us all as. And now that we're well into summer, I'm getting ready for a couple of weeks away, just getting the Nintendo Switch loaded up with retro games. Because, of course, that's what all us true gamers do, isn't it? You know, we don't enjoy any sunshine. We just sit inside playing video games throughout the summer.
Absolutely.
I remember last time I flew out with Dan, his Switch was left on in a bag.
Oh, yeah.
And it massively overheated. And I think you nearly wrecked your Switch when we went out last time.
You know, they actually did an announcement because I went to Poland this weekend just gone. Was out there at Pixel Heaven. I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, actually they did an announcement on the plane saying if you've got any gadgets, like if your portable console or your phone overheats, you must contact one of the flight attendants as soon as possible. And apparently they've run out with like a bag that cools it down now.
Yeah, they've
So
got
this
like
must
a
be quite
little
common thing.
isolation thing. And I think they
Yeah.
probably learned from the Galaxy phones, which I know was one thing that would go at the moment. But it's quite scary if there's like a proper fire on there. You can melt through the floor and stuff. So
Yeah, those lithium batteries, they just keep burning, don't they? So I'll definitely be paying a bit more attention to shutting down my Nintendo Switch this time, which I've got a feeling it's meant to do on its own, but it didn't last time. But yeah, back from a great weekend in Poland. So it's really bizarre, and I was saying this to you guys out there over the weekend. For those that haven't been before, a great gaming event, and it's a bit of a mixture really of retro and kind of modern indie gaming. Loads of people from all around the world there. So it's probably about 1,000 people there on the Saturday. It was really busy. But just met so many Retro Hour listeners and people who watch my YouTube channel as well. And I was saying to you guys, you know, it's always surreal when we meet people who know who we are in different countries. I'm always like, how do you know about my... Oh, yeah, of course. We put this thing on the internet, don't we? So, yeah, so if you were there over the weekend, it was great to meet you.
I love that. I can imagine the confusion when people go, oh, you're Dan Wood from, the Amigas, your YouTube channel. You're just there like, what do you mean? How do you know?
Yeah. Who are you? How do you know? It was a really good event. My second time out there in Poland. So great to meet so many people there. Have a few beers in the sunshine as well on the Saturday afternoon. That was really nice. And we've got loads more events we're going to be at all throughout the summer as well. I know you're in talk with the guys from Retro Messa in Norway, Ravi.
Yep.
Maybe you and a special guest heading out there this summer. Of course, your big event in Nottingham. It's all going on. So, of course, if you want to see where we're going to be over the next few months, check your podcast app. Have a little look in the show notes, which I will make sure work on this week's episode of the podcast.
What happened there last week? Because usually they're solid with the show notes, and Dan kind of disappeared to Poland, and I got messages saying the show notes aren't working, and I was like, I have to update it all.
Yeah, not to bore people. Basically, I use a service called Bitly normally, which basically shortens the links so they fit in the show notes. And for some reason last week, it told me I was up to my limit with making URLs. So I Googled Bitly alternative and this thing called Snipply came up. And the links all worked fine on Thursday before I went to Poland. And then all stopped working over the weekend.
It's guaranteed to do that when you're away.
100%.
Yeah.
So I will get those fixed and they will work again. Thank you for all your messages on that. Hopefully it's sorted for this week. And today we're going to be catching up with a good mate of the podcast. Now, I was chatting to Joe last week. I'm just kind of talking about, videos and stuff we've watched on YouTube recently. And I mentioned that DJ Slope's Intellivision Amico video, just incredible. I don't know if you guys have watched this. It's nearly a 4-hour documentary that he's done. And it's the most in-depth thing that you could, the most in-depth investigation really into the whole Intellivision Amico drama, I guess you could say, or saga.
Yeah, you know what? I've seen it everywhere. Like, so many people weren't covering the drama. There was outlets covering how good the documentary was, that Slopes put out, and the fact that it was like 4 hours, and I think it took him like 5 months to make it or something like that. Absolutely fantastic, and it's quite a bit of a sad story from his point of view as well. Like, I don't want to spoil our interview with Slopes, but kind of like where he was at, how he felt when the Intellivision was kind of first announced, and his interviews with Tommy Tallarico and all this kind of stuff, and how it's how it started and how it kind of ended for Slopes, as well. Yeah. And obviously he doesn't go into too much of that in his kind of documentary about it, because it's not about him, it's about the story of it and the drama of it and stuff. But talking to Slopes about it all, and how he was covering it from day one, and he covered it for years, and kind of like how he feels about it now and stuff like that. It was really interesting to talk to him about it and kind of see his point of view and everything from it. And obviously I love Slopes videos as well. I absolutely love his complete history videos. I just whenever he brings one of them out, I'll just sit there, especially when it's Sega Mega Drive stuff or Sega, stuff that started on the Sega franchises. Absolutely fantastic videos. He did the Castlevania one, which was absolutely fantastic. House of the Dead one a few years ago as well. So it was really great to chat to him about that, because I wasn't on the first interview you guys did with him, which...
No, we had him on, knocking on for 5 years ago.
Yeah, January 2018. Was the last time we had him on, so it was really great to have him on again, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, and also the Intellivision Amico, we kind of covered this when it was all kicking off, and it was this concert. Tommy Tallarico, he kind of bought the rights to the classic Intellivision brand, that was around in the 80s. Originally, the Intellivision sold 3 million units back then, made by Mattel, and obviously we've covered the original one as well. But this was kind of a mission to kind of bring the Intellivision brand back as a couch-based gaming console, and this launched as a crowdfunder back in October 2020, but of course so many delays and so much has been surrounding this as well, and there's been so much criticism of it, and now there's all these rumors that Tommy stepped away now, and the company's run out of money as well. So, but weirdly, we do talk about this as well, that the Intellivision Amico has been relisted on Amazon again recently. So we don't know whether, I'm not holding my breath this thing's ever going to come out, but they do keep showing up in places. So yeah, and Slopes' video he did, like I said, it was several hours long, but for me, I was working away a couple of months ago, and I had an hour commute there and an hour back, so I literally put Slopes' video on the Bluetooth in the car and just listened to it like a podcast.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to hear, and it's by far the best coverage of the whole Intellivision Amico scandal so far. So we're going to be catching up with Slopes Game Room, kind of about what he's been up to as well, and obviously talking quite a lot about his incredible Intellivision Amico video. So always nice to catch up with people, and can't believe we left it almost half a decade since we last had him on. So Slopes Game Room, he's going to be our special guest, and he'll be on the podcast in around half an hour from now. Now, there is plenty happening in the world of retro, and we're going to talk about something that actually delayed the start of this week's podcast in just a moment, possibly the most addictive retro game that you can play in your web browser in just a minute. Before we do that, though, I know this caught your attention, Joe. This is a game originally came out back in 2004, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Now, this came originally on PS2, PS3 there's a version of as well. I remember the HD version of it, but this is coming back with a proper full-on remake.
Yeah, so like you say, 2004 for the original on PS2, and then 2011 maybe 2012 they did the HD remaster where you got Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 for PS3 and Xbox 360, which have become really expensive actually, because they're quite solid HD remasters. But yeah, this isn't a remaster of the original game or anything like this. This is a complete remake of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, and they're calling it Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. And it's going to be coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam, which a lot of people are quite happy about because of the original Snake Eater never came out on PC.
So I don't quite understand what it is. Like, Dan said we're experts in the area at the beginning, but
that word just slipped out. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
you'll soon realise as you listen to the podcast.
No. Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater is that a follow-on then? And
So
what's the kind of theme of it? Because I'm looking at the trailer here and it's very animal based.
Yes. So I'm going to go into a full Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear breakdown now. So you've got in the mainline series of what we kind of know today. So there was the ones for the MSX in Japan, which were called Metal Gear 1 and 2. And then you got the Western Nintendo kind of releases of them, which were based on those games, but weren't those games for the original NES. And then in 1998, I think it was, you got Metal Gear Solid, which follows the story of Solid Snake. Then there was that was on the PlayStation 1. Then you got Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, for the PS2. And then the third one was Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, which was actually set in the 1960s, whereas you play as, I don't want to get too much into it, but you play as the original kind of Solid Snake, who's called Big Boss, who the Solid Snake as we know it is a clone of. It's all really, like the story and everything. It's too hard for me to explain in 30 seconds. But Snake Eater is the one that came out in 2004, and essentially you're in the jungle in that one. And
it looks very Vietnam kind of.
Yeah.
In the Cold War, isn't it?
Yeah, it's during the Cold War. I can't remember the exact story. It's a really, really good game. I've not played it for a long time. But yeah, a lot of the kind of game mechanics of Snake Eater, because obviously the Metal Gear Solid games are kind of based around stealth and, obviously CQC, Close Combats and stuff like that. You can use a lot of, there's a camouflage function in it. So you camouflage yourself so the enemies can't see you, and you've got to kind of blend in with the, your surroundings, blend in with the jungle, blend in with the sand and the mud and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is straight out of Apocalypse Now, this kind of intro that I'm looking at the moment.
100%. And then the reason it was called Snake Eater is because of how you kind of healed yourself and stuff. One of the ways you could heal yourself in Snake Eater was you would hunt animals as well, because the idea is you're on a solo secret mission, in the jungle. So you have to hunt and kill animals to feed yourself and stuff like that and heal. And then also you could break your bones. If you got hurt, you got shot, you had to actually heal yourself. You had to actually patch up your wounds and stuff like that. It was really, really in depth for PS2. And now obviously this is a complete remake. So it's not a remaster or anything like that. They completely built the game again. But what's interesting about it is it's a Konami game. And Konami, they've kind of disappeared over the last couple of years. They've been just doing their pachinko machines in Japan. And they've got such huge, IPs that they've just not really done anything with.
I remember you saying a year or so ago, you kind of feared that maybe they're kind of given up on console gaming.
Yeah, and all of a sudden now they're doing a Silent Hill 2 remake, which we covered a few months ago, which is coming out, I think, later this year or maybe next year. And now they've just announced Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Unfortunately, it's not got anything to do with Hideo Kojima, who is the father. He invented Metal Gear and was the director of all the Metal Gear games. Unfortunately, he had a falling out over Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, which I think came out in 2015. And he no longer works for Konami. So they have kind of released a statement, not addressing that, but just saying, the developers of Metal Gear Delta are going to make sure that they make the game as, as good as the original and as faithful to the original, and hope that the fans embrace it and enjoy it. So kind of a semi kind of acknowledgement that he's not involved with it. But what's also interesting is they have announced along the side of it that Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, the originals, they are going to be released for PS5 and modern consoles as well as re-releases. So they are remasters, and it's nice to see Metal Gear Solid 1 getting that remaster, because we didn't get that when number 2 and 3 came out, at least in the UK. I think Japan might have got it. So I'm really excited to play them.
It always seems that Metal Gear Solid is one of these titles that pushes a system graphically.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at this, it does look absolutely mind-blowing. And I like the fact that it's got all these modern graphics, amazing effects, but it's kind of recalling back to its older kind of roots.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember I was reading as well, Snake Eater, that was originally meant to be a launch game for the PlayStation 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they were working on it for, because the PS3 kept getting delayed.
Yeah.
So in the end, they actually moved the development back to the PlayStation 2.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's why it was one of those that really pushed the PS2 in terms of graphics.
Yeah, graphically. I mean, the Metal Gear Solid games, graphically, have always been amazing. Metal Gear Solid 4 was an early PS3 game in the end, and graphically, that looks fantastic. I remember getting Metal Gear Solid 5 for my Xbox One and saying to my brother, who's a big Metal Gear Solid fan, he was always a big Metal Gear Solid fan, and I remember saying to him when Phantom Pain 5 came out, that might have been the best looking game I'd ever seen. That was next gen. Like it looked absolutely astonishing, amazing, because it's set in the desert and then it moves into the jungle, funny enough. And I remember so you're absolutely spot on there, Ravi. Like Metal Gear games completely push the consoles to their limits usually. So fingers crossed this will be a big one.
PlayStation exclusives as well, so they probably push sales as well.
Yeah, absolutely, they are usually. But yeah, when this first got announced last week, I thought it was only on PS5, but the trailer I'm looking at now says it's on Xbox Series X and Steam as well. I'm not too sure about the 1 to 3 remasters. If the trailer I've seen on that did just say PS5, so I'm not sure if they're coming to Xbox Series X or not. But one of the things I've been reading is because of number 3 never actually came out on PC, people are excited to see if the remaster of Snake Eater, so the original 2004 remaster, if they are going to put that on Steam now, because that's never ever been on PC officially. So it'd be interesting to see if they do that. But yeah, really excited about this and excited to see that the new Snake Eater is going to be on Xbox as well.
Yeah, and this is only a little 2-minute 20 trailer they put out so far. We haven't got a release date or anything.
Nothing like that. No, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll link up the trailer if we have a look. I'm sure it won't be too far away, hopefully. Now, what about this? Combining two of Ravi's favourite things, McDonald's and Tetris.
Yeah, McDonald's is far from my favourite thing.
So you're more a Burger King guy, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I'm for personal reasons, I'm not a fan of these huge franchises, especially Ronald's one. But this is
Sorry, more a Greg's guy.
None of them. Cook your own food. But yeah, this is interesting. They've kind of, in China, they've released this, obviously Tetris is the big thing at the moment. Everyone seems to be talking about it. There's releases coming out, and they've released a little handheld. Yeah, which go ahead and talk about the shape of it and stuff. It's really, for me, I'm just kind of like, this is like a slight upgrade on the tap that they used to release in the 80s.
It's better than what we were getting Happy Meals over here, I'll give them that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's apparently to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the chicken nugget, but it is Tetris on a plastic chicken nugget. So it's a little, imagine kind of like graphically the Tiger kind of Tiger handheld things from like the 80s and 90s, but it's a fully functioning Tetris with the big McDonald's M in the bottom right corner. Yeah, it's a chicken nugget. So I thought it was the size of a chicken nugget as well, like kind of like an inch tall, but it's big. It's like the size of like a hand. It's like I would have a say probably the original,
like an iPhone or something.
Like an iPhone, maybe not too far off like a Game Boy Pocket. But yeah, man, China are definitely getting better toys than what we are in the UK at the moment. I've not seen any on eBay, but people, in the comments on the pages I'm reading, people are managing to get them, to buy them. So they are part of the Happy Meal, which is only the equivalent of $4 in China. And a couple of people have said they've managed to snag them for about $8, on like websites and stuff like that. But I can see this becoming a really silly collector's item in the future.
Yeah. And it's got kind of a D-pad on there as well, so obviously you can kind of move the Tetris pieces around, but it's also got a rotate button as well, a nice big button in the corner, which means you can only rotate the Tetris pieces in one direction, apparently, by pressing that button. But also, very cool, inside the box you also get a little carry case for it as well.
Yeah, you get
for your little console.
You get a little carry case, and the box is like the chicken nugget box, which is quite funny, that you get like your 20 nuggets in usually. I just think it's cool, but it's so bizarre. The only thing I can think of is like what you two said. It's just Tetris is big at the moment.
Yeah, it's obviously they've paid the rights for it. So just looking at the back, it says it's owned by the Tetris holding company.
Yeah,
and Alexei Bridgetnov as well.
Yeah, his name's on there, isn't it? Yeah,
in the back. Yeah, It's a piece of tat, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not very ergonomic, throwaway.
No. But I if I saw one, for a $5, I think I'd buy it just for the tat of it because it's funny. But yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the fact that we're now at the stage where basically McDonald's can give away video games consoles with a Happy Meal.
Well, interestingly, if you look at the history of McDonald's, I've covered a lot of this in Amiga Addict magazine. They have a background of releasing kind of propaganda games in the 90s that were, there was Mac Kids, there was these like environmental ones as well. Yeah. So at one point they could probably release a game collection. I think that they have, quite a big back catalogue.
Yeah, you know what?
They probably own the rights to a lot of those titles.
Yeah, you're not wrong actually. Yeah, because there was Global Gladiators, and then there was
Global Gladiators.
Yeah, and then there was McDonald's Treasure Island as well for the Mega Drive, and then if I remember rightly, they have actually done the little Tiger handhelds in Happy Meals before as well, like little miniature versions of them.
And obviously you've got like a Cool Spot, and you've got 7-Up and all of that. So I don't know. Maybe
they should do a junk food compilation for like PS5.
Yeah. But they wouldn't call it junk food. They'd be like,
no,
healthy fun food.
Yeah,
all the kids are getting fat off chicken nuggets.
Yeah, they always use that word fun. What always annoyed me as a kid? Only got like a fun-sized Mars bar or something. They were half the size of a normal Mars bar. That wasn't fun.
Nothing fun about it.
Yeah, never got that, yeah. So that is very cool. And I think, I've got a feeling you're right, Joe. These are definitely going to become collector's items, particularly if they're only available on China. I've got a feeling these are going to be on eBay for like a ridiculous amount of money very soon. So,
even in the 80s and 90s, I remember going to car boot sales, and there'd be these people with like Happy Meal toys, and there'd be a whole kind of industry in it. It's like Pez or something. It's like a weird kind of collectible.
Yeah, so they are available only in China at the moment by the looks of it. And there's a little YouTube video if you want to kind of watch out with the Tetris plays and a McDonald's McNugget. So I'll link that up in our show notes as well. Now, Windows XP, that does seem to be the operating system that just never goes away. You've got a Windows XP box, haven't you, Ravi?
Yeah, I've got 2 actually.
What about this? If you're interested in setting up Windows XP, do you remember back in the day? I remember as being, a bona fide nerd, I queued up in the rain to get hold of a copy of Windows XP.
I wasn't that nerdy.
On launch day, right?
Yeah.
I was there for the launch.
That's pretty mad. I remember seeing, was it Windows XP, or it was Windows 95 where they had the Friends cast?
Yeah, that was 95.
Doing a whole video of it. Yeah. XP was Longhorn, wasn't it? That was turned into a...
No, that was Vista. Yeah, it was Chicago was Windows XP. The code name, yeah. I believe. That might have been 95. Yeah. No, Whistler, that was it. Windows Whistler was XP if you're talking code names. But yeah, I remember, it was 2001, October, pouring down rain, standing outside PC World on a Saturday morning, I think it was, waiting for them to open to go in and snag my copy of Windows XP. Now, back then, we only had dial-up internet. It may have just got cable modem in. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I've got a feeling I had to go via my my housemate's computer. We had like a LAN cable where we ran it between our rooms, and he had the modem connected to his machine, and then I could go online via his. That's the way it worked. But I remember not being able to activate Windows XP online, so I couldn't get on the internet. So what I had to do is, you might remember doing this, Ravi, having to ring the Microsoft hotline and actually putting the numbers in, your serial number, to get an activation code to make sure that Windows
I never rang those guys. I was on dodgy sites.
Yeah, actually, I forgot about it. I used to run those websites, didn't but now it turns out that you don't need to call the Microsoft hotline or Google around for a Windows XP activation code, because the algorithm has been cracked and there is now a keygen that works on Linux. So after 22 years since the operating system came out, it is now really simple to activate new Windows XP installations without a crack or anything like that offline as well. So basically someone has just reversed the way that Microsoft used to generate these codes back in the day.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I don't think you can actually buy, I'm trying to look at the moment and see if you can actually buy a Windows XP license. And
no, definitely not.
There doesn't seem to be anybody like from Microsoft selling them, but also any of the support lines are kind of shut down. I know they tried to move a lot of people off Windows XP, I think the NHS hacking thing was quite a big, shock for some people on it with the ransomware and stuff like that. But
that was the last update they did, wasn't it? The WannaCry patch they did for it about a decade ago, I think.
And that kind of shocked a lot of people outside Windows XP. But in the developing world, it's still quite used quite a lot. I've been to quite a few internet cafes, and people still access it using Windows XP. So this is quite interesting, and it's a trend as well that cracking and making keygens has always been a kind of art, and getting the algorithm cracked and replacing it with a keygen. Often you'd get ones where you put one code in and then it regenerates a new code. I can imagine that XP activation algorithm was pretty tough if it's taken this long, and Microsoft would have invested heavily in its kind of copy protection. And
well, we did have Dave Plummer on, didn't we, from Dave's Garage. He used to work for Microsoft, and he mentioned that basically he put Microsoft Bob, some of the code in that, didn't he, into Windows XP's activation to kind of bloat it a bit. To make the file size, too big to kind of pirate back then, I guess, back in the dial-up days.
And also there was another thing where there'd be a lot of people that had OEM codes that would be like retailers. So there'd be a lot of retailers that, would package Windows XP with every single one of their machines, but they would have like a do everything code, you'd be able to apply it. And those got leaked onto the internet for a while, and that was how people were activating it and kind of getting it to all work. It's I guess that's not the serial though, is it? It's the actual activation. And if that is something impossible to do, with the servers not being there, this is useful. And I don't know if I can say if it's piracy or not, because you can't purchase it.
Yeah, I mean, technically it is, but it kind of falls under that abandonware thing. And I mean, there have been ways. I mean, if you Google Windows XP serial number, one comes up straight away. You can put in just activate offline with that, pretend you did it over the phone.
Yeah.
There's been ways to do it for like 20 odd years, but I think the fact that you can now generate, fresh working codes yourself without having to kind of reuse all these ones that are all over the web is, quite a handy little tool to have for, because I mean, Windows XP these days, it's definitely more in the realm of retro enthusiasts, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I thought it would be around forever. It's such a big system. I don't know if you've used Legacy Update as well, which is a really good piece of software that basically updates all the security on it, because going online on that, I wouldn't be doing my banking on Windows XP.
Well, that is one thing the Register are talking about, and they say on here, whatever you do, don't go online with it. And they say the latest version of a web browser you can run on there is Internet Explorer 8 or SeaMonkey that came out about a decade ago, or there's Opera version 36.
MyPal is one that I've been using, I
was going to say, there is a new kind of modern, retro browser for XP called MyPal that does work on there. And, that's the thing. I mean, people are talking in the Register article comments here, people saying, whatever you do not connect it to the internet. Make sure it's unplugged, off your Wi-Fi and Ethernet before you go online. People always talk like the second you connect a 98 or a Windows XP machine to the internet, within seconds you're going to get hacked or get malware. Now, I've got to admit, I've had mine online, and I haven't run into any issues in the last 10 years.
Your whole house goes,
I know, I might be
you've just told everybody now.
But this,
I don't use it regularly, but
this also reminds me of a really I was involved in some of these older sites. Keygen generators were like magic, just being able to put code in and then generate something new, and doing it through mathematical algorithms is pretty amazing. And back in the days we used to do it with lots of things. I'm not going to talk anymore. Let's go on to the next story.
Check the After Hours podcast if you want to hear more about that. But I mean, it's still funny to me that Windows XP is now kind of retro and abandoned. Like I said, vivid memories are queuing up to get a new copy of that. So it is very cool. There is something very nostalgic. I mean, back in the day, people used to kind of rip the look of Windows XP. I remember people calling it, the Fisher-Price theme. Those kind of big, bloaty, blue and green, blobby kind of windows and that Bliss wallpaper. But there is something very cozy about booting it up and looking at it again these days, isn't there? So it's definitely always going to have a place on one of my retro systems at least. So I'll link up that article in the Register if you want to read more about that. Now, I had to literally drag these guys, virtually at least anyway, off this game so we could start this week's podcast on time. This is a game you might remember as a kid, and this has been recreated as a free web browser game that is possibly the most addictive browser game you've ever played. This is Screwball Scramble. You're getting a bit frustrated at this, weren't you, Joe?
I was getting incredibly frustrated with it because you guys were smoking me. You were getting well ahead of me. But I just want to say, my entire life, not that I think about Screwball Scramble like every day or anything like that. I don't know why. I always thought it was Screwball Scrabble.
Scrabble's a very different game.
Scrabble is a very different game. But yeah, I grew up with this game as well, Screwball Scramble. For those who don't know, it's a kind of a board game / toy. It's like a mechanical toy, isn't it? Where you've got to get a marble.
Is it kind of magnetically based as well?
Yeah. There's a timer on it, and it's like you've got to move the little marble.
It's like a pinball, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like a ball bearing. Yeah,
you got to move it from one side of the track to the other, but there's like obstacles in the way, and you've got to use magnets and move bridges, and you use the controls of like dials and buttons, don't you, to move the ball around. And it was a really, really frustrating game, and it came out in the 70s, and I think to this day you can still buy it in toy shops and stuff like that. But yeah, this has been completely recreated to be played in your web browser by a Redditor called Captain Pepper, and I think it's fantastic. I was fully addicted to this, playing this earlier on. You use your mouse to kind of like use all the different buttons and dials and stuff. But I was positively terrible at it. I could not get past the first bridge for a good 5-10 minutes. And we were all talking on audio before we started recording this. And you guys were like halfway around the board on your first go.
Well,
I was more of a fan of Mousetrap when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't think...
We had this, but it wasn't called... It was called Run Yourself Ragged in the UK.
Oh, was it?
Screwball Scramble.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, it was a name of it in the 80s. But yeah, Mousetrap was great. That was a similar kind of concept,
But I
wasn't
don't think it's as fun as this. Like, just playing this again, it does seem more fun. And I love these kind of browser-based titles now. You're getting emulators built in browsers. And it's just really interesting that the browser's kind of becoming a platform.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it has been for a while, and I think that's the thing. Just it plays these kind of games really well. But I mean, they are productivity killers, aren't they?
Yeah.
The fact that we spent about 10 minutes on this before we started the podcast. So I want to say, if you've got any work to do this week, do not fire this up on your web browser at work. Otherwise, it's going to be the rest of the afternoon gone. But yeah, very well done. So I'll link that up if you want to play it. It is completely free. Now, this is a legendary game on the Mac that is back again for the PlayStation 5. The old school Macintosh shooter Marathon returns.
Yeah, so Marathon first was developed and published by Bungie, and Bungie are famous for Halo, and it came out in 1994 for the Mac, and
it was basically the Mac's version of like Doom or something, wasn't it? It was that big at the time.
Yeah, and also it was probably the best game you could get on the Pippin, which was short-lived.
Oh, yeah, I forgot it came out on that.
Yeah, which was the short-lived kind of console that Mac released. It is a really cool game, and this looks like they're kind of continuing the story in a FPS way. So like Bungie, they've been really good with Marathon. They've put it out and they've released all the assets, and everything for the game trilogy is freeware. So they've also released Marathon 2's code out there and everything. So they've kind of, it's not a remaster, it's not a remake, it's like a reimagining and trying to get people into this world. I've had on and off stuff with this. So like I was a huge Syndicate fan, and they did this whole Syndicate FPS, and I played it, and it didn't feel like it was relative or related to the old game at all. It had a few elements in there, and it was kind of like they were slapping a name on something. But Marathon, I think, is one of those games that, like they've done so many Halo titles, haven't they? They've totally hammered Halo. I think Marathon could work quite well. And interestingly, this seems to be a kind of world building game. So
yeah, it hasn't got the single player campaign apparently.
Yeah. So there's a lot of these kind of world building and base building games that are becoming the trend at the moment, where you're kind of given a space or a map or a planet, and you kind of, develop it how you want. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's like crafting features in there, ways to like upgrade your base and play it as multiplayer. But I think this is also going to survive on the fact that, the online area is populated, and games like this, they're good, but the online community kind of doesn't take to it. They just get a bit abandoned. And it does look interesting, however, because there's all these islands, there's ships out in space, there's a different approach. So I think this could bring it to a new audience, the whole world of Marathon.
Graphically as well, I think it's quite interesting. There's kind of if you watch the announcement trailer, that's only like a minute 38. No release date or anything as yet. But it's quite an interesting mixture of graphical styles. I mean, in some ways, it reminds me a bit of something like Mirror's Edge.
Yes.
But then in other ways,
good
you've got kind of a
comparison.
lot of kind of old school kind of BBS style graphics as well, haven't you, in there too?
Yeah, it's got a lot of like retro influence, and a lot of the colours are really bright, and there's a kind of a big space theme in there. I think it's really interesting, and of course I don't see anything that's relevant to the old graphics, but the old graphics were very like primitive.
Yeah, so interesting to see that brand getting resurrected again. So we'll wait and see what that's like. We'll keep an eye on that if you want to check out the trailer. I'll put that and all the rest of the stories. You don't have to Google around. I save you that effort every week. Just check the podcast app on your show notes or head to our website at theretrohour.com. Right then, this week's special guest, catching up with DJ Slopes from Slopes Game Room. Bit of a catch up with him, and also talking about the Intellivision Amico in just a minute. Now, before we do that, let's give a massive thank you to an incredible sponsor of this podcast. We're very pleased to see our good mates at Retro Gamer magazine back sponsoring this episode of the Retro Hour. Now, of course, Retro Gamer, if you listen to our podcast and you enjoy the kind of content we do, you need to be reading Retro Gamer magazine every month.
100%. I absolutely love Retro Gamer. I've been buying it every month recently for the last couple of months because they've been covering some really, really, really awesome stuff that I absolutely love. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles history of issue a couple of months ago. And then there was actually an Amiga issue, which has been quite enlightening for me and has helped me write a few questions for this month's After Hours, as well as one that I took on holiday with me only about 3 weeks ago. They did a really in-depth history of Tomb Raider, which I really, really enjoyed. But this month's issue is their Legend of Zelda special, which I'm really, really excited for.
Yeah, and obviously with the new Zelda game coming out, I mean, it's very timely as well.
Yeah.
And there's a massive 14-page feature. And, they kind of go way into the history of Hyrule and everything about Zelda, those original games as well. And, really breaking down everything from, the iconic bosses, the gorgeous music, all the inhabitants that you find in the worlds as well. So if you're a fan of Zelda, a must read this issue. And also they talked to Gary Bracey from Ocean Software as well, talking about his time at Ocean, looking back on all those massive games from Batman to Whizball to Street Hawk and Knight Rider, and the Ultimate Guides they do as well. They're going to be looking at Gunsmoke, Capcom's rootin' tootin' follow-up to Commando and Bonanza Brothers, Sega's sneak-based arcade gem from back in the day. There's also a little feature in here on the PlayStation 2 Slim and Atari UK, the untold story as well, because we did an episode with Daryl Still from Atari a couple of years ago now, and it's always interesting to kind of hear these perspectives from different sides of the pond. We've read Nolan Bushnell's story quite a lot, but hearing about Atari here in the UK was a really interesting read. And there's also a special feature on It Is So Bad, The Power Glove.
I was like, what?
The Power Glove is so bad.
I do, yeah.
A great feature, though. So that's all happening in this month's edition of Retro Gamer magazine. And, we get you some incredible offers if you support our sponsors. And check this out, what you can get. If you take up our offer and subscribe to Retro Gamer magazine, you will get a special bundle full of goodies, including, how cool does this look? A Space Invaders plug-and-play controller. You've been looking at this, Ravi.
Yeah, this looks really cool. You just plug it into your TV and you've got some mini games on there as well, and it's like a little dedicated unit. Take it around your friend's house. Yeah, it looks really nice. A good little addition.
And also you get some of their incredible special editions of Retro Gamer Magazine, these bookazines that they do, including 100 games to play before you die, the Retro Hardware Guide, which basically covers all the classic consoles in here as well, the ultimate guide to retro hardware. And I love this one as well. This is the 200th Special Collector's Edition of Retro Gamer Magazine.
That's a really good one as well. I've got that myself. Fantastic issue.
So much in there. So you get all three of those special editions. You'll get the Space Invaders plug and play controller as well. So really you need to take up this offer as well. And of course you'll get Retro Gamer Magazine delivered through your door and a digital copy of the magazine too, so you can read it on your iPad or your phone. So all you have to do if you want to subscribe today and take advantage of this incredible offer, and be quick, because we always get people contacting us in like a month or two going, I want to take up this offer. Is it still on? We're like, no, you need to take advantage of this when it comes out. So head to magazinesdirect.com/retropod. Now, if you use that link, they'll know that we sent you along. It helps us out as well. And maybe you're already subscribed to Retro Gamer. You can gift the mag to someone else and keep the gift for yourself. So you get 6 months of Retro Gamer Magazine, Space Invaders plug and play controller, 4 special editions completely free included as well. Head to magazinesdirect.com/retropod, and a massive thank you to our good mates at Retro Gamer Magazine for their support of our show. Now, even though we are into June now, we're going to be doing the May Patrons Hangout this Sunday. Get your head around that.
Get your head around that one. Yeah, kind of my fault. I got stuck at work.
And mine.
And Dan didn't realise how late he was going to get back from Poland. So we did reach out to the Discord, and thankfully everybody forgave us. We are going to be doing the last month's Patron Hangout on June the 4th, and we are going to do 2. So we promise we will do another one in June as well. But yeah, really, really, really looking forward to that. Might show off a chicken nugget Tetris if I can get my hands on one.
We got like 3 days to get hold of one then. So we're going to be doing that. Basically, we'll invite all our patrons on. We just geek out. It's going to be happening this Sunday night, so if you want to join us for that. All patrons are welcome, so a very good time to sign up. And also, if you join us as a gold tier member or above, you will get a download link to 35 episodes of our bonus podcast, which is the Retro Hour After Hours. And the latest episode is a Mastermind special. This is where we really quiz and grill each other, isn't it?
Yeah, we missed the Christmas quiz, but no, I came up with the idea of us kind of like all doing a specialist subject and then answering 25 questions on that specialist subject.
You remember Mastermind on TV? It's still going, isn't it?
That's the one.
That's it.
Copyright, quick.
But yeah, some really, really interesting results, and it was a real giggle. It was a proper fun one, that was, and we did all poke fun at each other. I won't say much more, but yeah, really, 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 really outstanding questions on that. Some real tough ones as well, and some real funny ones, wasn't there? Yeah, and
like backing us on Patreon is just fantastic. It helps us run the show, but also you get all that extra content. You also get a mention in the Hall of Fame as well with my awful singing, and you get exclusive access to our Discord server as well. So there's some rooms in there just for backers where they have chats, and we discuss stuff about the show. It's really awesome, and I just kind of love the community behind it. And thank you everybody for supporting the show.
And also you get an extra 10-15 minutes of news just for our patrons that we do every week. Yeah. And we're doing that in just a minute as well. But let's hear Ravi's lovely singing and welcome our latest patrons this week into the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
And I'll let you guys induct our 2 new members this week into the Hall of Fame. Take it away, Joe.
Andreas Sunner.
And Kev Sanders.
Thank you so much for your support. And if you'd like to join our incredible Retro Hour patrons community, all the details to sign up right now are on our website at theretrohour.com. Right then, next, talking about the Intellivision Amico and a catch-up with our good mate, DJ Slopes from Slopes Game Room. Next on the Retro Hour podcast. You're listening to the Retro Hour podcast, and it is time to welcome on this week's very special guest. And it's someone who we are having a long overdue catch-up with. As we realised last time we had our guest on this week was 5 years ago now, and a hell of a lot has happened, not only in the world, but also in terms of retro gaming, YouTube, and lots more as well. So let's welcome on Daniel Ibbertson, also known as, of course, as Slopes Game Room. How you doing, Dan?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on. 5 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
5 years.
That is nuts. Completely different world now in many ways compared to what it was back then, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, of course, I mean, your YouTube channel, goes from strength to strength all the time. And obviously, we need to talk about this massive Intellivision Amico video that you did a couple of months ago. But I've just been seeing everywhere. And I mean, let's start with a bit of a catch-up, really, though.
Yeah,
I mean, since we last spoke, I mean, you're on 166,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel now.
Right.
And that is huge. I mean, how's that journey been then over the last, half a decade?
Wow, 5 years. That's pretty insane. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I'm obviously still enjoying it. I'm still doing it. I'm always trying to push the way I make my videos and how I edit them and all that sort of stuff, which slows it down. But I think the end result is better now. I think it's just crazy thinking back from 5 years. I'm just always trying to push forward, and I think I'm doing that.
Yeah, I think it's great to see you grow. I remember, about 5-6 years ago, discovering you in the gym of all places, and I was watching your videos about the Disney VHSs. I don't know if you remember those early videos, and really enjoying it. So I'm really pleased to see how well you're doing. And
hang on a minute, you discovered me in a gym?
Yeah, in the gym of all places. I was in the gym, and I was watching YouTube while I was running. And then I
thought me and you bumped into each other in a gym, and I'm like, man, that is seriously infrequent. I don't go there very often.
No. We'll have to keep that bit in. But our next question is, what challenges have you faced then while growing your channel, and how have you overcome them?
Probably just more trying to keep the balance of family life and work life. I suppose last time we spoke, I was pretty much still in a full-time job and doing YouTube on the side. And at that time, I was literally working 9 to 5 or whatever the hours were, and then doing that same amount again and going to bed at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, which I don't suggest people do, because I made myself very ill, just constantly pushing myself so hard to constantly meet that deadline for myself to get a video out every week. And when you quit and now you've suddenly just got a whole extra 8 hours or whatever it is per day, it takes a long time to try and get that balance of no, you don't need to do that amount anymore. And, you got to try and get that nice focus between the two. I mean, obviously as my kids get older, they need a lot more attention as they get older, and you're playing a lot more games with them and doing whatever else. So I think it's just that work-life balance, trying to find that good middle ground.
Do you kind of feel sometimes like the YouTube algorithm's kind of your boss now sometimes? Yeah,
to a degree. I mean, I've always been very lucky in the way I create my videos. If we want to get technical with monetization or whatever else like that, I've always been very lucky in the sense that my videos are very evergreen. And when I say that is in my top 10 videos of every month, I'll still always have videos that I created 4 or 5 years ago. And if I was doing the latest review on a Call of Duty or whatever the game may be, it would do very popular for a few days, and then it's just dead in the water after that. Where my videos, I'm just constantly adding to the pile of videos that are evergreen. That's the content I've always made. So I've never had to chase what's popular right now to please the algorithm. I just keep adding to the pile of my own content, and in that regard, I've not had to chase the algorithm too much. From time to time, for instance, right now I'm looking at doing an Evil Dead complete history, where I look at the creation of the movies and its comics and its video games. So I mean, obviously I'm going to aim to do that now, because obviously there's a new Evil Dead movie, but for the most part I tend to just do what I fancy.
Yeah, and people could still watch that video in 5 years and it'd still be interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of, making your videos, has that process kind of changed much in the last 5 years or so then? And the process of doing it and deciding on the topics and the production?
Not so much the topics. I'll just do whatever I fancy. Sometimes I get so many suggestions I can never keep up. So, I mean, it's getting harder to do kick scammer episodes these days because, they took the money and they ran away. I mean, it happens all the time, even to this day, and it's just, I hate to be that guy, but it's not an interesting story anymore. I've told that story so many times. I've now got to find far more interesting, complex kick scammer stories. So they're a bit more complex because you have to find the really interesting stuff. So they're a bit more infrequent, but I think they're better now for the most part. And in regards to the complete history videos, which I take a hell of a lot longer to create, they're harder to make now because I do different things. For instance, I show myself on camera a lot more, and obviously editing that together with the stuff that's off camera takes longer, and getting all the lighting set up. And I've got all of these curtains and everything I put up to block sound in the game room, which then turns into a studio, and doing all these different things. It makes the process longer, but like I said, I think the end result is just so much better for it. I look back at videos I made even 5 years ago, and they're a little bit cringy for me to go back and watch, but I'm sure that's the same with everyone.
Well, obviously, like you said, kick scammers, you are still doing that series as well. I mean, for people that maybe haven't checked any of those out, give us a bit of kind of background on what kick scammers is and maybe some of the highlights that you've covered over the last 5 years or so.
Okay, yeah. So basically, kick scammers started off as an accident. I was always trying to find new interesting topics, and I always do videos of things that I'm interested in personally. Kickstarter, crowdfunding websites, that's always something I've been fascinated in. And I created, I think it was like a top 10 games that you're never going to get to play, like really good looking games, ones that like almost hit their target but didn't. And I did that, and it just did really well. And I'm like, okay, let's see what else I can do. And then obviously the scams started coming in, and it did really well. And I just found it so intoxicating to do that sort of content. I look at it personally as my junk food content. After working on Pac-Man, the complete history, or Castlevania complete history, whatever that may be, my life just becomes obsessed with that franchise. And I need something a bit junk foody just to sort of reset myself before I work on another one. I mean, kick scammers. So I look at not just scams these days, but also interesting stories based around Kickstarters. But I mean, obviously the big one, which I think is my best video I've ever created, was the Amico scandal video, which I released earlier this year, which took me 4 months to create. That was really, really hardcore. I mean, I've done well over 100 kick scammer videos, and the majority of them are like top 5 or top 10 sort of videos. So I mean, there are literally hundreds and hundreds to choose from. I do prefer to make ones that are based on gaming and video game consoles and stuff like that, because I think they work that way. I think that pleases everyone then.
Yeah, absolutely, and it keeps it relevant to kind of like the original channel as well, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Focused. So you've touched on kind of like trying to find a fresh kick scammers and it not being the same story and over again. How do you kind of like pick that up and research it? How do you go like, right, I'm going to do a video on that one? Do you have to kind of go through, troll the internet and kind of find something?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or do you just kind of see it in forums that you're in and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different places. I've got my own Discord where people like to share kick scammer news, good and bad. I've got there's obviously places like I don't know if I can say the word, but the something Kickstarters on Reddit. It's a bad word, a Kickstarters. I don't know if I can swear on this, but there's a place there. I also do kick scammer news where I just find the interesting good and bad stories based on all different things of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all that sort of stuff. And every so often I'll come across something, I'm like, woo, that's interesting. And then I'll just go hard with my research. And that's exactly what my next kick scammer is all about. It's one that I picked up as an interesting news story. And now I'm like, wow, I need to turn that into a full video. That's something that there's a lot more meat to that bone, And that's all about, I'll give you a quick brief history on this one. So there's a Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 game called The Outbound Ghost, and by the time this comes out, that video should be released as well. But the idea of it is it was so heavily badly ported due to the popularity they got on Kickstarter by a new publisher, by a publisher called Digerati, that by the time it came out, it was just completely unplayable. It was an RPG, and every time you had to fight someone, you can imagine pretty much all the time, it was like a 14-second load. It was absolutely horrendous, to the point where the developer had to DMCA his own game to try and stop people buying his own game to try and get all of this cleared up. So you can go and buy a game right now that you can't buy digitally on Steam, Switch, PlayStation Market, all that sort of thing, because of what happened on Kickstarter. So there's another example of, they didn't take the money and run. This is just a really good, well, not good, it's a bad, but it's an interesting story to document.
That's fantastic. So has any of them ever reached out to you? You do a kick scammers video, and then, they reach out and they, kind of maybe have a go at you, or even kind of try and say their side of things. Has that ever happened at all?
It rarely happens. But yeah, it does happen. I never forget. So I used to be a lot more harsh, and I think I'm a bit more professional these days. But one of my earlier videos, I think I may have even done this one before we last spoke, but I did a video, and I think I called it the Kickstarter scum that ran away with your money 7 times so far.
Yeah.
So that didn't sound too good. But the idea of it was this guy that he would do a Kickstarter, he would run out of money. So to try and make more money for that one, he would do a new Kickstarter for a new thing and then try and, the extra money I get for that will bang that. And he just kept going 7 times and he never fulfilled any of his Kickstarters. So I did this whole big video. And I remember I think it was the first realization that, I'm actually a bit more notable now online. I remember looking over at my wife, who was helping me just collect this information together. And I said, do you think this guy will actually see this video? Like, will he? I don't know. And then I remember it was like a day, maybe 2 days later, he became a Patreon of mine.
Oh.
And I'm like, ooh, I don't know how to feel about this. At first I was like, who cares? But then I'm like, actually, no, he's giving me money that some people would say robbed. I tried to reach out to him. He didn't reply. I refunded him, and we've never spoken since. That was one example, but it was really, really quite odd. I had a lot of people get in contact with me over the Vega Plus video I made many moons ago, to the point where the video almost got taken down, but I managed to keep it up. I did one where I said that this guy was stealing assets from another game, and he tried to take the video down. I'm like, well, but you are doing this, and they left it.
Do you have to argue that with YouTube then? How does that kind of work?
In that instance, I had to argue that with YouTube. Basically, when I say argue it with YouTube, they sent in a request, and then YouTube have to look at that, and then they didn't see anything wrong with it, and that was just the end. I didn't have to do anything, but in other instances, you would have to then put your case forward. Which, luckily enough, I've never had to do.
Well, I do know that you have been reached out by the person behind one of your biggest videos recently, which I think we should get into this because we've been covering the Intellivision Amico on this podcast, over the last, I think it's 2 or 3 years now since it first got announced. And obviously it's an ever-developing story, but I think if anyone wants to get a really good overview of exactly what this is about, you've done by far the most in-depth deep dive into this. A video that's 4 hours long, going into every aspect of the Intellivision Amico scandal. So tell us how this kind of got on your radar. Right. And did you set out to make an episode that long?
No, not in the slightest. I had no idea how long that video was going to take. It was outrageous. So basically, this is an interesting one, not just because, it's the longest video I've made and blah, blah, blah. But this was the one, this was the scam, if you want to call it that, which most people do by this point, that got me. I got fooled by this. So I had my own personal vendetta on this bad boy. So, I've always been fascinated with the history of gaming. So obviously a new console that's coming out from Intellivision, which was really exciting to me, even though I don't really have any history on it. I just found it exciting. And I like the concept of it. And the person behind the whole thing, Tommy Tallarico, to me was, if you look at video game legends, maybe the first name I ever heard of, up there with David Perry and stuff like that. I went to a school, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I think I went to a school of 70 children in the entire school. And there was only 10 people in my year. And I don't think anyone within the year in mine, a year above or year below, had a Nintendo. So I'm not even sure I knew it existed, a Nintendo back when I was a kid, but everyone had Segas and everyone was loving Aladdin and Earthworm Jim and stuff like this. So I remember I pick up magazines and I was just so laser focused on Sega that I remember seeing Tommy Tallarico. So when I finally got to speak to him and stuff like that, I gushed. I was like, oh my God, here he is. This is the guy. Really, really exciting stuff. It's that saying, don't ever meet your heroes, comes into play though, because unfortunately, he was, he said what he needed to try and get this thing out. And every single time it was pretty much a lie, unfortunately. So it went as far as me interviewing him and him telling me these fibs or extending the truth, however you want to put it, directly to me, to my audience. And then that's when it became a bit more of a personal thing. I decided, right, let's set the record straight. Let's make this video. I made it. I was actually contacted by another company that wanted me to make a Boulder Dash complete history video, which you are a voice in. You provided a voice for. And I was like, you know what? No, I need to have a break. Let's do this Amico video. And it ended up being a 4-month thing. It was the most research I've ever done for a video by a country mile. It was I was losing sleep over it. I was dreaming about Tommy Tallarico and the Amico. Like, it was like my life became Intellivision Amico, and now I think I'm officially obsessed with that system. Give me one of those over an Xbox any day of the week. I'm so obsessed with it. I've not spoken to him since. Everyone asked that as he reached out. No, he hasn't. We have definitely stayed very quiet since that. But yeah, he did make all the promises that he'll come to the UK and I'll give you an Amico and you can play it with your kids and all this other stuff. And yeah, I'm obsessed now.
You know, the whole thing to me is just fascinating because obviously there's the whole kind of why behind it, which I still can't get my head around, obviously. And the fact that, I don't know if you're the same, but I mean, especially since I watched your video, I actually do kind of want one now. If they release it, I'd probably buy one.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I know I've got like the whole YouTube thing to fall back on and that's why it's interesting. But like at the same time, I'm so fascinated by this. So fascinated.
I mean,
yeah, I'm gutted I've never played one. I almost got a flight recently to go play one. I was that obsessed. I know someone that has one, and I almost flew to them to go to quite a way as well.
I mean, our next question was going to be, were you a believer initially in it? You know, did you believe in the project? Were you excited for it to begin with? Like, I guess the whole thing, it's just so sad, I guess.
It is. It is big time. Since that video's come out, I've been contacted by quite a few people. Not directly from Intellivision, but like from other people that were like, oh, we were actually going to get paid to create a game for the Amico, and they never paid us. So here it is on Steam, and it's just now dead. And it's just like, well, this is so sad. Everything about it. Yeah, I was 100% a believer. But back when it was originally announced, I mean, it was like £150 or something like that, or $150 to that equivalent. Something around that mark. And I'm like, for that, I'm still, if that system still came out and it had those initial games for 150 odd quid, yeah. I would still believe in it. But unfortunately, over time, the price has gone up. There was 157 games he teased for that, which has got to be the greatest video game launch of all time, surely.
Yeah, I think the Switch launched with 3 games, didn't it?
Yeah, was it N64? I think it had 2 in the UK or something like that. Yeah,
Pilot Wings and Mario 64. Yeah,
this was going to be coming out of 157 games, all within the first year or something to that effect. He just constantly teased every time someone said like, "Oh," there was absurd ones like Kool-Aid Man. Oh, I used to love Kool-Aid Man on the Intellivision. Funny you should mention that. I'll leave it there. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? There was just so much of that. And the amount of research, it was just, I remember just scrolling. And every day you're like, okay, that's another 20 games to add to the list. It was it was pretty hardcore.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned that you know people who've actually got some, because there are some working units out there in the wild, is that right?
There are.
And these do probably work.
They do. And that was my issue. People always, when people said like, this doesn't exist, it's a scam. And I'm like, but it obviously does exist because people have gone to events and played on it. So it can't be a scam. People have played on it. But that's the big question. What is it? What is inside that unit? And that's the thing that no one knows. We have a good understanding now. It's an old mobile phone chipset that's worth nothing. But at the end of the day, these systems do exist. There are two very small YouTubers that actually have test units. And so these things are out there. But I would love one so much.
I look forward to seeing the prices of those on eBay in like 10 years.
Yeah, well, I think there must be between 15 or 20 odd out there, unless they've made more since the days where they went around and showed them.
Well, they're taking pre-orders again on Amazon. Do you think it'll ever see the light of day?
No. Within the last 24 hours, I don't know if this is going to be mentioned in your podcast earlier on in the news section, but they've just put out their first announcement. Their first update within the last, I think it's like 9 months since they've done an update. And that's primarily telling people that these games are coming onto other systems. And you've also got Amico Home, which is basically their way of saying that these games are going to be coming onto mobile phones as well, which is stupid because that was the thing they used as marketing. You don't want to be on your mobile phone, play on this. People are so secluded on their mobile phone, and now they're coming out on mobile phones. And the version that I've very luckily been able to get a copy of is for PC, and that's coming out for the Switch and the Xbox, and that's Shark. And also Astro Smash is coming as well. And these were the free packing games. And the sad thing about it is they're really good games. I've only played Shark, but it's a really good game. It sucks.
Yeah, you've actually just done a video about that, haven't you? Which will be out by the time we release this episode.
Yeah.
So give us kind of the lowdown on Amico's Shark then. What's it like?
Okay, so if you look at it the same way as Wii Sports, there's really not a lot of beef to me, Wii Sports, but it was a good party, fun, like multiplayer game. It's the same with this. There's only 12 levels in Shark, but as a multiplayer game, as long as you have people of the same level as you, you're going to have a great time playing Shark. It's really good fun. But you wouldn't want to spend 350 quid to play it. You know, it's as its own game for a Switch. If it's like a tenner, maybe, I don't know how much it's going to be, but if it's about a tenner, it'd be good fun. For people out there that don't know, it's kind of like Feeding Frenzy. You control a little fish. You have to eat the fish that are smaller than you, dodge the ones that are bigger than you, and that's kind of it. But obviously in multiplayer, everyone's just trying to fight each other, and there's a shark that comes in and annoys you and chases the one with the lowest score. It's a good fun party game, kind of like a Mario Party mini game, but like definitely one of the better ones.
I mean, do you think there's actually space in the market for systems like the Amico and, you know, like the new Atari VCS as well? Because, I mean, you know, when they first were announced, I must admit I was a bit skeptical as to like who's going to buy these systems. I mean, but like you said, you know, 150 quid, I'd probably take a punt just in case.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit of an impulse buy then. But do you think there's room for like, you know, new consoles?
No. I mean, for people like me and you, yeah. Like I'd love one because I just find it so fascinating and weird, and I love collecting oddities, but no. I mean, the marketing was going to be going to like religious shops to try and tackle that sort of thing because it's all family friendly stuff, or it was going to go after mums and it was going to go after nannies and in nursing homes. It's kind of like how the Wii did. But the difference is the Wii's also got that, you know, the incredible library of Zelda and Mario games and God knows whatever else. And the Amico just doesn't. It's got the fun party games, but I mean, who's going to spend 350 quid on that?
And I also thought it was strange as well because, I mean, they're really pushing that on like the couch gaming aspect of it, which, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm a fan of couch gaming, but there are plenty of games on the Switch, you know, you can sit down and play Mario Kart together on your couch. You know, it's not a unique thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my kids play on the Switch all the time. 4 players on, like I say, Mario Party, Mario Kart. Like, Mario Kart is perfect. I've literally got a properly young daughter of 5 years old that can't control it at all, but you can add all these handicaps to help her out, and then you can make it harder for for us, the parents. It's the perfect game for a family. And yeah, I mean, the Amico won't have anything to that level.
I mean, when did Tommy first reach out to you then? Were you quite surprised when he got in touch?
I actually, which way did it go? I reached out to him first. He'd seen my videos. I'd seen him comment a few times on my videos. And it was always funny. If you say the name Tommy Tallarico in a podcast, and I had a very small podcast at the time, like 30 people watched it maximum. And we mentioned Tommy Tallarico, and there he is in the comment section, like, this is insane. This is insane. The CEO of this company just keeps popping up. But I reached out to him because they announced their, you can't see me, but the quotation marks are up here, physical games, which were these essentially sort of credit cards that you like tap onto your console and it downloads it. So the game isn't there. It's a download. And I reached out to him like, hey, can I review these? And that was the first time I had a bit of a communication with him. And it just went from there. We spoke quite a bit after that, but primarily about music and other things. And I suppose looking back, I suppose he kind of groomed me a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. There's
a story for the papers.
Yeah. And it went from there. I interviewed him, and I was expecting it to be like an hour long, about his history, another hour about the Amico. Turned into being like a 5-hour interview with him or whatever it was. And it all just went downhill from there, really.
So I know they hired some like really big names and stuff as well, didn't they, on board? I mean, they had guys that work for Xbox and stuff. But I mean, people can watch your documentary and hear all about this. So the whole thing sounded very bizarre. I mean, what's kind of the state of the company now then, from what you know? Is it kind of just completely done? Yeah.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, so basically my understanding is, or at least what they're saying is, if you look back at those videos of them doing the tours of their offices, which was so extravagant. I mean, when I go up to see Sega, I remember the first time I got to see Sega, a tear rolled down my face. Oh my God, 10-year-old me, if only they could see me now. Like, and you walk in, you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of just offices. But then you look at what Amico are going on, and this is amazing. This is like going to Google or something, the amount of effort they went into. And yet, like, why did they do that for a system that's just, it's not even out yet? This is a company that's only burning money. Tommy has gone into complete hiding now. Phil Adam has taken over as CEO, and Phil Adam was actually part of the Coleco Chameleon that got more recently discovered near the end of my video. Just shows you how crazy that is. It's essentially a skeleton crew of people now. You're not going to be able to get your refunds. The amount of money that you've put down for deposits, like myself, $100 for the for sort of like a pre-order, that's gone. Don't expect that back anytime soon. And you get like about one update a year at most, and nothing is happening. Just constantly this like, oh yeah, we're trying to get it done, but there is only about 3 of us in the office these days. That's all there is. And then apparently they're not getting paid, but I mean, who knows by this point. It's
quite sad though, because I think in many ways it does damage to the scene, doesn't it? Because it puts people off backing similar projects in the future.
Oh, for sure. And it's really, really sad. The one bad thing about the Kick Scammer series is I get comments constantly, people saying, oh, I'm so glad I watch your videos. I'm never going to back anything on Kickstarter. I'm like, well, no. Like, there is some fantastic games. And especially games. But like, I'm a big fan of board games. I back a lot of board games on Kickstarter. Like, even the ones that end up coming out and they're not that good of a product, it's still fascinating to go along that journey with them. I'm a big supporter of Kickstarter. They just need to sort out their looking after the backers a bit more. You know, making sure they actually know who these people are. They are getting better at it, but
it's sad. And I've got our headline there for this episode: DJ Slopes groomed by Tommy Tallarico. We mentioned your complete history videos earlier on, which, you know, they're my favorite videos by you. I absolutely love them, and they're my favorites too. Yeah, they take such a deep dive into the history and, you know, of a specific game series. I think your first ever one was Streets of Rage, which I absolutely love. You cover a lot of Sega, but it's not just Sega; it's all sorts of franchises and stuff. What's your favourite series been to cover so far, and why? You know, you said you become a bit obsessed with them for a few months after that.
Yeah. I mean, I was really happy with Castlevania, the complete history. I was really, really happy with that. And I know I did well with that, not to blow my own trumpet, but like, I know I did well with that because Konami reached out, frankly, making it. And then now I've worked with them several times. In fact, they gave me the greatest sponsorship ever. They said, can you take out the sections where you talked about the Game Boy Advance ones, put them in another video as well, and then we'll, you know, sponsor you for that. I'm like, okay. They contact me when they got new Turtles games coming out. Every so often I'll get a message from a company saying, oh, we're making a Castlevania version of Dead Cells and we've been told to speak to you. So I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. It's kind of like when Sega first contacted me. So now I'm like, I know Konami quite well. That's definitely up there. Boulder Dash was one of my favorites. I know I've only just made that one, but the fact that I got to speak to the original programmer, the developer, the 2 original developers, the original publisher and the new publisher, and put it all together, I was like, well, that's freaking awesome. Really, really happy with that. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Pac-Man I was really, really proud of. And again, I had people from that working on Pac-Man historic books and stuff reach out. And I'm actually working on a Blu-ray now of my best Sega-based one, with documentaries. With commentaries from other YouTubers and myself and stuff. But that's still early days.
I mean, you know, talking about how you put those together, I mean, you know, recently I've gone through a bit of an obsession of going into, you know, retro gaming markets and retro gaming shops and buying old magazines. I'm on a bit of a mission at the moment, not only to buy like all the magazines my mum threw out 10 years ago, but also I'm picking up like old issues of Edge magazine. I'm really into those from the 90s right now. I mean, what kind of resources do you use to put those together?
Oh yeah, well, magazines is fantastic straight away. There's quite a few different places you can go. I mean, people will also say, you know, never go to Wikipedia, but I tell you what, I've actually discovered things through Wikipedia. At the end of my research, I remember where was it? I went to one of them and I went on Wikipedia and I went, what's this game I've never heard of? And then you end up going down another path. And the good thing about it is they've obviously got the resources at the bottom, and as long as you check that and you don't just copy from that, then, you know, I don't think it's a bad resource. But yeah, retro gamer magazines, actual retro gaming magazines, the Internet Archive, interviews if you can find them, and if not, actually going to reach out to the people themselves. That you're always going to get your best content if you are able to reach out to the developers yourself, which is so much easier than you would expect. Just typing their name in, like, oh, well, there's their Facebook. Hello, can I speak? Yep, there it is. Boom. And it's just a lot of the time it is that simple. I mean, it goes very deep. I've got quite a few Google Drives full of different magazines and stuff like that where I can resource and go back to in case they ever go missing on Internet Archive. So yeah, there you go.
You're giving away our secrets there as well now. You just reach out. Just say, do you want to come on?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, often, really? That person said yes? Okay, great. People are often interested to talk about what they've worked on, I think you find.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, for the most part, people are proud, of what they've done. Yeah, I mean, there's only been a couple of instances where people are like, and it's normally when I've tried to reach out to a couple of Japanese developers. I know once, I forget his name now, but the creator of Power Stone, I tried to reach out and said, look, hey, can I interview you and talk about Power Stone, because I want to do a Power Stone complete history. And he just will not talk. You have to go through all of the correct means of speaking to who is it? It's Capcom, I think it is. Yeah. I'm like, okay. I mean, and then it doesn't go anywhere. But it only rarely happens.
Yeah, I've been trying to get someone on this podcast to talk about Rise of the Robots for the last 5 years, but no one's getting back to me about that one. So.
I wasn't a part of it. Please, no.
Yeah. The game's got it wrong. I was never involved. Yeah.
So, what other channels have you been checking out recently? Other YouTubers you could recommend?
Yeah, okay. So I'm really bad with names. I have to look back through. But I remember when I went full time as a YouTuber. That not even full time, but when I started trying to promote my own stuff, that's when you start finding the smaller channels. You always have your Angry Video Game Nerds and your Metal Jesuses like at the top. That they're the ones that are going to get promoted the most. They do the best with the algorithm and stuff like that. But when you start discovering the smaller channels, that for the most part tend to stay small because they're so obsessed with one particular subject, they are sometimes, and more often than not, actually the ones that I tend to gravitate towards. There was a couple that I shouted out recently. Someone's just done a huge Jet Set Radio documentary. So it's the Masterpieces series. K is they, very small channel. We're talking 3.1 K subscribers. They've just recently done I think it's like an hour and a half documentary on Jet Set Radio Future, all about how impactful that game was. And I was like, I think that's so fascinating. The amount of effort these people go into on one game, it just shows, because they've got so much passion on that one game, you're going to find way more information out on a tiny channel like that than you would on a big channel that covers it. Also, the Hansen 01 done a video all about drum and bass music in video games and the rise of drum and bass music all the way from the Ridge Racer days and up. I found that absolutely fascinating. There's a couple of good suggestions for you. Yeah, Kutsky, the famous DJ Kutsky, he's got his own retro gaming channel now as well. I'm checking him out quite a bit. But there's a few suggestions for you. Yeah,
you've actually done some videos, haven't you, like recommending YouTubers that have got under 5K subs?
Yeah.
You've done a few of those in the past, and I found a few great ones through your videos on that, which definitely worth checking out.
Oh yeah, it's a great thing to do. You've always got to spread the love. I do it now via my social medias because then I can get a lot more out more frequently throughout the year. Because those videos, they don't do well for the algorithm and stuff like that, but I still want to be able to promote these smaller channels. So yeah, I do it via social medias and the YouTube community tab.
In terms of gaming and your console collection, how's that kind of changed in the last 5 years or so? Are you still much of an active collector? Have you got any new additions?
My favorite system is the Mega Drive. I get games for it quite infrequently, in all honesty, because they are just shooting up in price. Games that Sonic and Knuckles, like my all-time favorite game, that was £60 on Japanese import, and now it's like closer to 200, and that was only in the space of a few years. It's crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous. For the most part, I'm playing indie games for like the Switch and stuff like that. I've got a stupid Switch collection, close to 200 physical games. Most of them are the collector's sets, so they're like stupidly big, and you got that tiny little cartridge inside the huge box. But that's. I don't collect as much as I used to, because for the most part, I just need to. When I'm getting the footage, I will ROM it for the most part, in all honesty. I know it's probably blasphemous, but it is. That's how it goes.
Looks a lot easier easier to capture, and looks nicer on screen as well.
Exactly.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's interested in starting a retro game collection in 2023, other than don't?
Oh, yeah.
Or be rich.
I don't think there is really. I was going to say, just don't. Yeah. But what I will say is, when I sold all of my Mega Drive games, but basically I sold all my Mega Drive games as a kid to get a Dreamcast, which I was always gutted about, because I probably sold 50 games for 50 quid to get that Dreamcast. And then I probably spent that on controllers or something, or VMUs. And And then I just started going crazy, just buying anything I could from boot fairs. And then I didn't know what I had. So now I just buy games I want or I need for a video. And because of that, I'm a lot more connected to my collection. I know everything that I have. You know, there's no like, oh, I need to look and see if I've got that game. I've got a smaller, but I've got a way more refined and loving collection. So I'd say if you want to collect, just get the games you want to get and just go from there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So I went through a process of just literally every time I saw like PlayStation 2 games were, they're still quite cheap, but they were dirt cheap like a decade ago. And I go into like That's Entertainment and our local video games retro shop that we had in town in Nottingham, and I'd just buy the shelf full of PS2 games.
Yeah.
Hadn't heard of half of them. I'm like, just to have them because they're £2 or £3, but now half of them are like in my shed or in the attic, and you don't even ever pull them out. They're just taking up room.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good for people out there to actually play the games that they want to play. I mean, I remember when MVC was going down and they had with their Dreamcast games for £1 each. I bought every single game I didn't have. And I guarantee you some of those games to this day, 20 years later, something like that, I still have not played. It's just because I'm not interested in football games or I'm not interested in whatever the game may be, but I just had to have it for my collection. And it's it's not the way to go about collecting, in my opinion. It's nice to have another blue spine on your wall, but nowadays I just buy the games I want.
It's interesting. I think most of the community seems to be going that way now. There was definitely that stage, and I'm same as you. I used to go to the car boot sales and just buy everything just to have it on the shelves. And now I've boxed all of it up. I've not sold it, but I've boxed 99% of my collection up because of my daughter came along and everything, and it's had to all go in the attic. And now I just have my Mega Drive collection out, and I will buy a game every couple of months that I want to play for the Mega Drive.
Oh, yeah. It was the Echo the Dolphin video that was the big turning point for me. I created, not the first Echo, but I made an Echo the Dolphin complete history video.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to buy a copy of the game so I can hold it and stuff like that. I bought it, and then I went and put it in the box, and I was like, oh my God, I already own a couple of copies of this. I just didn't know what I had because I was just buying games all the time. So I was like, no, let's just sell the lot. And there you go.
And I think in terms of like the prices going up, I mean, Joe and I were talking a couple of weeks ago that we're looking at the prices of like, the Sega 32X. Oh. And Joe, you kind of feel like you've missed the boat on getting one of those now, don't you, Joe? Because the prices have gone up so much.
They've gone up so much, yeah.
I remember it's absolutely insane. I mean, I bought 25 years ago Knuckles Chaotix for £15. And that is a £200 to £300 game now. The really annoying thing about that is I was moving house at the time and I had to sell a few things. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sell that, which is a real shame because I generally quite liked it. And I sold it for like £120 or something like that. And then the next week they announced Sonic Mania and all retro Sonic games tripled in price. Oh. And I was like, damn, literally a week later. And it was all in box and everything. Manual looked like it'd never been touched.
Yeah, you never know if there's a right time to sell, though, do you? When someone's a very
exactly.
tough balance.
I mean, I've got Streets of Rage 3 on my shelf. It's probably it's definitely the worst Streets of Rage game out of all of them. Yet it's worth stupid money now, like a few £100.
Yeah,
it's insane to think that's just sitting up there. That thing under the big thick layer of dust. It's nuts. It's nuts.
I always look at them and I think, that's my that's my daughter's uni fees.
100%. Yeah,
that'll pay for my funeral when I'm 80.
Yeah.
Do you ever fear that the bottom will drop out the market and will be worthless in like 20, 30 years?
I don't know. I really don't know if it will. I feel like everyone keeps saying this, but I haven't seen it happen yet. I mean, it's just getting more and more popular because more and more people are able to get online and see it. From back in the day when you didn't have as readily, everyone wasn't readily accessible to the internet, then it was only really popular if you found worth a lot of money if you found someone that was willing to spend that money. But nowadays you will always find someone that's willing to put down stupid money to get it over someone else. So I just can't see it going down. I mean, even Switch games, some of those are stupid money now. Skylanders, can you believe Skylanders, the most throwaway game of like the last decade potentially, is worth almost £200 on the Switch because it was a rare game. And it's like that is a system that's still popular to this day. It's bonkers.
I mean, in terms of getting away from the screen and getting out and about, I mean, obviously in this post-pandemic world, events are back on again. I saw that you were at OLL in Norwich a couple of weeks ago. I mean, any more events that you're planning on getting out to over summer?
I definitely want to go to Play Expo, but I think that's more in October. Summertime's my family time, so we'll go to the Netherlands. There is a big retro gaming museum there somewhere, so I'm going to try and visit that. but yeah, I'm all about the family in the summer. Go out on holiday, go to Disneyland, all that sort of stuff.
Have a bit of a break from it all. Yeah, you need it now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we went out to Florida last year and it was awesome. And now I'm just like, got to go see more of the world.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, in terms of your channel and anything coming up over the next couple of months, anything you're working on now that you can tell us about?
Well, yeah, I've got that Switch game. What have I called it? I've called it a really good clicky title. What is it? The Switch game that Kickstarter destroyed. That's what I'm working on now. Like,
nice.
But other than that, I want to work on like an Evil Dead, and then I'm going to start looking into my next complete history. Which I'm in that mind space at the moment where it could be so many different things. So I'm possibly looking at like all of the Illusion games to do with, Mickey Mouse and all that sort of stuff, because Japan actually put a hell of a lot more under that umbrella. It's not just World of Illusion, Castle of Illusion. They have like all Quackshot and everything like that under it. So that may be quite a good, interesting history piece. Who knows? Who knows where I'm going to go? Normally I go in there thinking I'm going to do one of these games for a complete history and then I end up doing something completely different.
Well, whatever you do, mate, it's always quality viewing, and the amount of views that you've got on your channel and subscribers proves that. So best of luck with it all, and let's not leave it 5 years till we catch up again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, a bit sooner next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All the best, Dan. Nice to talk to you, mate.
Cheers, guys.